When you discovered the law of attraction, you started to believe anything was possible. Life got better, much better. Now you want more, but it's not working. That's where the Manifest It Now show comes in. If you've been waiting for someone who can teach you the practical application to manifest quicker and easier while having more, turn the volume up, because the dynamic duo, Cassie Parks and Ginny Gane, are ready to teach you how to live the law of attraction like they do. It's time to laugh and learn.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Manifest It Now. I'm here with Cassie Parks.
And I'm here with Ginny Gane.
And our topic for today, we're going to talk about that you really can have a happy and a crappy day. So that's going to be fun to get into.
It is. So, I love this topic. It's kind of come up in a roundabout way a little bit on some calls recently. I've had some recent experience with it, and it's just such a powerful thing to realize, and it's important as a manifester because I think we're kind of taught differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And how we talk about our day is super important to how we're going to be creating our future days.
Absolutely.
So what are you excited about, Cass?
I am excited about my backyard, and I'm excited about, I was thinking about this earlier today or yesterday, like how to totally say this, but just the way things come together. I mean, this is always the way it works, but there's just some really cool examples of how not doing something or doing something and like, you know, not putting something off for a year, but like not doing it for a year, and then just the timing of everything working out. So, and just one example of that is we pull down an old shed in our yard, and we have this beautiful, fun space that we didn't know was there. I mean, I kind of knew it was there, but it was way bigger, and it's just awesome. And then even like a secret cement slab that we found underneath it so we can put a table, and
it's like pulling up your rugs and finding hardwood.
Yes, it totally was. And just finding like, oh, there's almost like this space that's been kept that I've been wanting this to be. And just everything sort of working out in the timing of when we took that down, and because we've been talking about taking the shed down or moving it for a year, and everything was like, you know, people like, it's not worth moving, like it's not worth getting the truck in, or it's too heavy to lift, or, you know, there were all these things. And last weekend, you know, we're going to get a new shed, and we're like, all right, let's just take it down. And we're like, we can put it back up, and we have a use for it. And so just super fun to see all of that come together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so fun. And I like how you didn't know it. It was like, here I am.
Right. Here I am. And like, yeah. And if we'd had torn it down, like maybe last year, I might not have been as open to putting the shed where it's going to go in its new spot, or we might have put it somewhere where now.
That's totally true. I love that. You might not have been as open to things being different than you thought they should be, but now because there was that time, there was that space, and now you are, and it turned out better.
It totally did. And that happens in manifesting all the time. Like, so one of the things I work a lot with people, or I feel like comes up pretty a lot, is like, oh, I should be doing this, or I should be getting this done, or I should this. And it's like, no, like if it's not inspired, it's not. And the reason sometimes is because we need to grow into something. We need to be able to see what's really supposed to be there, instead of what we have in our mind is what we think is supposed to be there.
Oh, girl, you know I know. That's a big one. Getting the shoulds out of there. I thought my life was supposed to look one way for a long time, and then it didn't. And it turned out way better.
Right? Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what are you excited about?
Well, I feel excited about it. It kind of feels like a miniature manifestation. It was probably a couple weeks ago. I just had this like one thought, and it was like, you know, I want that feeling of like an avalanche of things happening. Like things always happen in my life at a pretty consistent pace, and love it. I love and appreciate them all, but I'm like, I want that like big feeling. Like I want the feeling of everything coming at once for a little while. And I kind of feel like that's happening. And so there was a whole bunch of things fall into place. I mean, little things that are hard to explain, but you know, my paddleboard arrived. I had ordered it for my birthday, and that arrived. And then the next day, a tattoo spot opened with this guy I've been waiting for 8 months. Speaking of like waiting for the right time, that was awesome.
So cool.
So much abundance is going on in our group, in our Truth Tribe. Everything's so engaged, and Skills Camp is starting at the beginning of October again. So if you have been thinking about that or wanting to get into something before, starting 2021 in a really powerful, confident state, definitely check that out. So I'm excited about, it's like all of these things happening at one time. It's like a whole bunch of goodness. And one other thing that I really want to share that I can't, but I will someday.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it's like the avalanche of excitement.
Yay. I love it.
Yeah.
So awesome.
So where do you want to start with our topic today?
Well, I kind of want to share this like little inspiration story because like it ties into our timing and like, like you said something about an offer and it reminded me, and I just think it's such a cool story that I want to make sure I share it really quick. Talking about everything falling into place. Like I have a friend, we were supposed to catch up a while ago. We didn't. We kind of see each other on Facebook, but we're business friends and we've done a lot of business growth together. Anyway, I just randomly reached out like last week and I said like, hey, and then I realized I was the one who hadn't followed up the last time. And I was like, oh, clearly I dropped the ball.
Shoot.
You want to get together on Zoom? And she was like, yes. And I suggested a time. She goes, I just had someone cancel that spot.
Oh, that's cool.
Right? And so we met and we had fun. And I just asked her, something at the end. I'm like, hey, is there anything I can do to support your business? And she's like, And she goes, actually, yeah, like let's do a money talk and a money like thing in my group and talk about money. And because that comes up, she coaches people going through a divorce. And she goes, that comes up a lot. So that's going to be awesome. And I was like, that's amazing. And then she's looking through her calendar and she goes, oh, I work with that astrologer. And I said, yeah. She goes, that's a day to pitch something. So get ready to like make an offer at the end, because in this, like with her astrologer had said like, these are great pitch days. She's like, so you should definitely make a pitch to my group. And it was just so fun because of the way it happened. Like it was like, just this is the day, the opening. Oh yeah, like let's just do it let's do it in a couple weeks. And then like, oh, she's like, yeah, and that's a perfect day for this. And so just all of that stuff, letting it all line up, I think is so much fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love stories. I love sharing like real life things like that. And I'm excited to get into our topic. So let's talk about how you can have a happy day and a crappy day. And that's awesome.
And that's awesome?
It is, because I think we're taught growing up really like you're happy or you're sad. Like you had a great day or you had a crappy day. Mm-hmm. And we're not taught to look at our full day. Like what was your, like what was the best part of your day and what was the part that, you wanted a little more support on? Or we're just not taught to look at it as a full picture. We're really taught to categorize, and that gets in the way of so many things, especially when it comes to using the law of attraction on this sort of daily life, creating your life long-term basis that you and I talk about.
Mm-hmm. Because what you say about your days is creating, like your brain is listening and the universe is listening and you're listening. So you're creating the story you tell for your days. So if by default you come home and say there was 5 great things and 5 not great things, and you're like, oh yeah, it was bad or it was okay or wasn't that great, and that starts to become the dominant story, you start spinning that and that becomes what's easiest to get to. That becomes what you create, without giving air to the whole big picture. Now, I think this is interesting because a lot of LOA is saying, well, don't talk about what happened that was bad. Don't focus on the bad parts. So let's clarify this a little bit. Cass, I want you to start. In reference to like happy and crappy.
So it's really, for me, I think this conversation comes down to the experience. It is okay to experience something super crappy in a day and still experience something super happy. And I want to come back to like the should you, shouldn't you talk about it sort of thing. But really, I think a lot of LOA, and even sometimes my newer clients, or sometimes it even happens when someone's been around a while, like it gets stuck in there, like never talk about the bad stuff. And I think there's a way to train to like put that highlight on the good, and then talk about things that don't feel good in a way that you can move through them.
I think that is so important. If you haven't developed that skill yet, practice that. Talking about things that didn't go well, or that were uncomfortable or painful or quote unquote bad. Learn to talk about them in a way that's productive and beneficial for your manifesting.
And I'm going to say this, venting is not generally beneficial.
Is not it.
That's not it. That is the temporary. It gives us that like the emotional, that chemical thing in our brain that like is just a chemical hit. Yeah. But it doesn't allow it.
It is like a drug hit. Like,
and the thing about the drug hit in that particular situation, well, always, is then if you've ever found yourself like telling the story and then like getting more revved up about it and needing to tell it again in a bigger way and again in a bigger way and again in a bigger way, that's because that drug hit chemical reaction, you need more of that energy to feed that, to get the hit.
Yeah. That's so good. I always like, for some reason, addiction like really interests me in terms of, I'm going on a side tangent, but law of attraction, but I always come back to like our thoughts. There's so many ways that we're addicted to our thoughts and addicted to the drama, and not in an uncontrollable way, but in that it's like reactionary way. But you still can catch it, and there's a place where you have a choice, but it is that sense. It's like feels like that. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. So where do you want to talk? What do you want to talk next about sort of this crappy and this happy day?
So I would love to, so we identified that venting isn't the way to do it, and that it's important to find a way to talk about what was uncomfortable in a way that's productive. What are a couple elements of that?
In a productive way?
Yes.
Where you're not getting that fuel, or you're not getting a hit. Like you're not temporarily feeling better after. And this is a process, and it's conscious, and you have to become more conscious of it. And so if you notice like you get that little bit of feel better, but then you feel like going and telling someone else, and it's becoming your thing, that's how you're going to start to become aware of this. And just become aware that it's not productive. Like that's step one, right? To figuring out how to do it productively. And how to do it productively usually always is to feel your own feelings before you talk about it. Because
I totally agree.
What happens in venting is we're actually trying to feel. Like and it has that side effect of, I'm going to call it a side effect of that chemical hit, drug-like hit, but we're trying to get something out. We are trying to feel better. And there's always a path to feel better that is more healthier, is going to lead you down to more success. I'm not going to call it good and bad. It's just one is going to lead you to more of what you want, and one is probably going to keep you doing the same thing. And and I pointed out that way because it's a choice. Not one is good and not one is bad. It's what do I want? It comes down to always, what do I want when you're using the law of attraction? Do I want more growth, or do I want to stay right here and experience the same thing over and over again?
Yeah, and there's no right or wrong answer, because you might have a different answer at different times, and the most important thing is that you're honoring that.
Yes.
Wherever it is.
And I would even, it said there's no better or worse, but in terms of moving forward, honoring that you want to stay there, I think is actually better than saying that's a bad choice and like choosing differently.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Totally. So I love what you said about starting with how you feel about it. So first, making that choice. Do I want to go this way? but always expressing or sharing something from a place of I feel, or this is how I felt about this, or in this situation, or this is what I experienced. That is a really powerful and productive way to share some uncomfortable stuff in a
And
day.
so, Jen, are you more leaning towards like a friend or to your partner? Like sharing a situation with them that happened, or are you talking more, or maybe this applies to both? I just want to be clear for our listeners, more about like something that happened to you and just sharing with anyone. Or is it like when we're...
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't just, I'm pretty picky about who I share any uncomforts with. And I will usually always share once I've already done some processing.
Yes. And
once I've reflected and given it some space for me to understand how I was feeling, where they were at, or whatever happened.
Yeah, me too. And I will always recommend like feeling whatever feelings come up. Like often I think we take, and I don't think you can correct me and tell me how you meant like processing in this case, but for me, it's always feeling those feelings so that I can then have the logic space come in and I can look at it. And that's kind of what I mean by process. A lot of times I think process gets, I don't know, filtered in from other places, and it means like roll it over a million times. And like,
oh, yeah. That's good clarification. So that's not, process for me is all about reflecting, like separating from the event, and then reflecting on where my emotions were at different points. And basically that's it, how I experienced that. Not the details of the event, not rolling over what happened. And sometimes I still do catch myself doing that, but I can catch it and then choose something different.
We are not perfect, and sometimes I have to stop and go back and be like, okay, I have revved this up in my mind 3 times, like go do your work, So what I want to highlight, because we mentioned like the venting in the beginning, is venting is sort of revving up that emotion every time, what you said. And so that is really like intertwining that emotion and trying to get that emotional release with telling the story, versus what Jenny said, separating from the story and really being able to pick out the sum of the part, like the parts, like not seeing it as sort of like this whole event where like, oh man, I'm pissed, or oh, this really hurt my feelings, which are both fine, but picking out parts like, oh, this was the actual thing. This is how I felt, and really looking at all the threads of the tapestry instead of just like the one thing.
Yes. It makes me think of like the women in the Truth Tribe are getting really good at sharing this stuff in this way. And that's exactly how it's showing up, is like, hey, this is what happened. This is what this was my experience first. Then I stepped back and thought this, and then I redirected here. And then now I realized this. And there still might be a question in there, but that's exactly what you want to do. And so, then before you're going to share about your day, just coming back to this, I will usually only share, like if I'm talking to an acquaintance or a casual friend, I usually always stay on the good stuff. Like there's no need to go into anything that doesn't feel perfect. That gets saved for Cassie and Lisa. Yeah. Because we've talked about this before, but you really want to trust someone to give you space when you're sharing, and not try to fix you when you're sharing stuff like that.
Absolutely. And so, that's the way I do it. And if you were like, oh, well, I don't know how, the thing that you can put into practice right now is what we practice in the Enchanted Circle. Like the very first question, it's always something about what's going good, right? And there is no option to not give an answer. I will come back to you. I will.
I love it when
I'm like,
fight me.
Great. They're like, nothing. I'm like, awesome. I'll be back. You have 4 more people until I will return to you. Because there is always something, and I get it. Sometimes it doesn't. Actually, I don't get it anymore because I've trained myself. But there were moments in the past where looking for the, like, what felt good didn't feel good, and that, or, you know, it didn't feel like it was possible to find something good when things didn't feel good. And,
Yeah.
but there's always, and what that does when you open that space of what is good and what is awesome, it allows you to see that other thing differently. It allows this space and oftentimes this opening that helps you just see that, or gives you the space to talk about it in that more process way that Jenny and I just talked about, versus just sort of sitting in it.
Yeah. So the reason this is important when we're talking, like coming back to our topic of you can have a happy and a crappy day, is it does take a level of like emotional maturity to be able to say, like, when something does go off in your day and like it, you know, it wants to consume your thoughts, right? But you're not letting it. You're like being deliberate, but you come home and you want to talk about your day, and it's like, it's big, it's there, you know, it's there, right? It wants to like kind of come out. And to be able to share that in a way that isn't needing something from someone else, and then be able to share, and this was a good part of my day, and this great thing and this great thing happened. And that might involve like some conversation in between there. But I think it's so powerful and such a sign of maturity to be able to say, even though this thing happened that was uncomfortable, also these really positive things happen. So sometimes when we're just talking about what's going wrong, it's like we are seeking for some external acceptance or validation or something. And so being willing to then give that up and say, and this went well and this went well, is showing and demonstrating, like, I got this. Like, I'm the creator of my life. Like, I'm the one who's responsible for how I feel, and I love your support, but I got this.
Absolutely. I love that. And that, the next step, well, we kind of wrapped up on the day. I want to go into a little bit of the higher level and how being present plays a part in, like, so we're kind of, what we've talked about right now is sort of like the things that feel like, I don't know, someone cut you off, or maybe even something went wrong at your job, but like that are really important and can feel really bad. But even when there are really deep things going on, I want to talk about how to be present with both of those so that you get to still have the good. You don't have to be consumed by something that is feeling overwhelming. Yeah.
Yes. Like when someone's going through an illness is the biggest one that comes to mind. Or someone just got laid off and they have no plan, like one of your closest friends or something. So being present with that.
Yeah. And so I think I want to put, for our listeners, I think the next level manifester, or this bigger emotional space that we get to hold as humans, is to really get to experience all of the emotions in a day. Sometimes we don't have to have like the sad or the ones that we don't want, but being able to hold the space for, if you are somebody who just lost your job and doesn't have, doesn't have a plan, like holding your own space of feeling that emotion as immediately as possible, right? Like it might not be possible, or you might not want to, like while you're packing up your desk or being escorted out. But like when you get to your car, like feeling that, or driving to a place where you can just let it all go, is that creates the freedom for that other happiness. That is part of what allows that to move through faster. It allows your intuition and your instincts to come back quicker because you've felt and you've processed that. Like the same with an illness or supporting someone through an illness, like being in it and feeling it when you're in it, or taking the time, like we talked about a couple of episodes ago, to take care of you and feel what you need to feel and do those things, like really feeling those emotions when you need to, is what enables you to have fully a happy day. Because we always want our resources available, to feel happy. And the best way to have those available, because we prefer that. I mean, some of us, I on occasion love like a good cry and feeling like the depths of like sadness and stuff like that, because I like being human.
A good on your knees, sobbing, ugly cry.
Yes. And yet we really love happy too, but it's being on our knees and sobbing as quickly as possible that enables that space for that happy to come, because it can come in. There's room for it when we're not holding in that emotion. And it is so beautiful and amazing when you are living a life that you can have that sobbing knees cry like at noon, and then at night something amazing happens and you can be fully present with it, not have the thought or like, oh, well, that kind of sucks that this happened on this bad day, you know, or I can't fully enjoy X because Y happened earlier.
Yes. And carrying that experience with you in your head into every moment versus just being present with that experience. And I'm sure, like, I know in my life there's been, you know, very serious things and very joyful things happen in the same day, never mind if it's like the same hour, you know. And I'm sure with our listeners too, like, this stuff happens. It actually makes me think sometimes, like, on our calls we will go from someone talking about like something very tragic to something celebrating something really incredible, and there's space for that because we're all being present with it, you know, and that experience is possible. It is a little strange, but that the key to that is just what Cass said, is the presence of and letting it be full, experiencing the fullness of the moment in the moment.
Yes, and being just present with that. I love you bringing it up on the calls, because the same thing will happen on our calls. It will be very, you know, very serious, very heartbreaking, and then very like, oh, I'm going to celebrate this because of presence. And that is, I mean, I went through a lot of that with my love. You know, for those of you who don't know, we have a history that was rocky at one point in our lives, and there was a lot to heal from, and there was a lot to feel that I didn't know that I needed to feel. And I remember in like those first couple of months where we started talking, like going from like the on the knees to like, yay, I have a new client, or like this interviewing my clients, you know, like really feeling the feelings, and then getting to get on and be present interviewing my clients, or getting on a call and getting to be with my clients. And it's one of those, it's what makes life even sweeter, because you're not missing anything, because you're stuck in one spot.
Because if you aren't being present, you're getting caught up in the what happened. And a big part of that too is giving yourself that permission to say, this is why we're talking about this, the happy and crappy, like they are allowed to coexist. Because if sometimes there's a stigma around when something is traumatic or painful, that we have to carry that throughout our day until the thing is resolved, but that doesn't serve anyone. So it's be there and give yourself permission then to feel joyful about this. And it's just a more full experience of life.
It is. And it's just like you get to feel the good stuff even more, you know? Yeah. And go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, it's just,
I want to just kind of
okay, I was just going to say, because I think you're going to kind of do a little wrap up maybe, but one of the reasons I wanted to share this is like really to give that permission that Ginny just mentioned, like for those of you who are growing emotionally, like, and you get to this space where it feels very weird to have maybe a moment crying on your knees and also fully experiencing joy. I want you to know that that is not only possible, it's what happens when you continue to grow, and it's not the normal. Like, we're somehow taught that if we're on our knees, like we need to be on our knees for a long time. But if you really feel it, it goes really quickly, and you get to welcome another emotion and another emotion and more experiences. So I just want you all to know that it's normal because it can feel weird when you first start doing it, when you have that contrast, and it's normal and it's amazing, and it's going to make you a better manifester and create a better life.
Yeah. And you won't know it until you experience it. You're kind of like, yeah, whatever.
Right?
I was going to say, I know we're running out of time, but I do want to quickly touch on, like, when is it that you share, like, when do you share what's going, like, the uncomfortable stuff versus the, when do you not share that?
Does this feel like a 1-minute topic, or should we? Okay.
No,
I was like,
feels
should we wait for another show?
Okay, so to be continued. All right, everyone. We'll have an amazing week, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Go be awesome.
Thank you for joining us on the Manifest It Now show, where you learn how to leverage the law of attraction to manifest your dreams. Now that you're inspired, share the love and review us on iTunes. While you're there, remember to subscribe.